All right. Welcome everybody to the podcast today, the 8-Figure Product CEO. And today we have a great episode. We're going to talk to Steve Sheinkopf, CEO of Yale Appliance, a little bit about Steve. And then Steve, I'll ask you to give yourself a quick intro.
Yep.
Yale Appliance is a third-generation family-run business founded in 1923. And under Steve's leadership, they've grown to well over 100 million in sales, over 250 employees. And they're known from turning service, not just products, into a competitive advantage. So we're going to go through the story today. Steve, before we jump in, you want to give a quick intro?
I think you did a pretty good job. I am, third generation. You said under my leadership. I like to think there's a lot of people that have driven the bus from time to time, and I'm happy to be part of the team, either in a big way or a small way, depending on what we're talking about. But you did a good job.
Okay.
Done your research well.
All right, we're going to jump into these questions, and I think for the founders listening, there's going to be a lot of great nuggets here, especially with the growth of the company. Before we get into it, guys, appreciate your support. If you want to check out the website and work that I'm doing, go head over to apexceo.co. I have an exit founders calculator on the front page, so you can head over there. Jot in some information about your business and kind of see how prepared you are to exit and sell your company. Okay, so Steve, let's talk about the original spark that led to the start of Yale. Now, this is way before you, so this is a family story, I guess, right? How did the business start, and kind of give us a quick history?
Yeah, I wasn't around back then.
No.
Seems I've been here for 53 years, either part-time or full-time, but I wasn't back then. 1923. 1923, it was started by three guys, and one of them is actually the great-grandfather of one of my best friends.
Oh, wow.
And my grandfather came in as an immigrant and started working there. And in 1932, this is like the original bad recession, not any of the ones we've been, he bought in and bought it out in 1932. And, he was an immigrant from Poland, and him and his older brother worked and brought the next 7 kids in and put the last one, Jack, through medical school. So that's a little about Yale. Somewhere in there, my dad took over, and there's never really official handoffs in the family. And somewhere around 2001, 2002, I kind of took over, and here we are in 2025, in the midst of more turmoil.
Yeah. Wow. So you took over right after the dot-com bust, basically. That's kind of when I started my company in 2001. 2001. And what was the size of the company when you took over?
When I started here, it was about how much we do? About 400,000 a month. I'd say about 4 million a year.
About 4 million. Wow. So you really, really have scaled it. And I have all these, I have a series of questions here, but let's just jump into a different question. What was the main, can you sum up, just maybe for founders listening, okay, you grew it from, you're well over 100 million and you were about 4 million then. What do you think was the main thing that you did that helped you grow? Obviously there's a lot of things, but what was sort of like that thing that stands out?
Well, early on, you took what was given to you. We competed. It was the toughest competitor we had, and this is going to make you laugh, was Sears.
Oh, yeah.
They owned 53% of the business.
They were big in appliance.
Huge. More than one out of every two was sold by Sears. Then we had Leachmere here as a chain. So we kind of took what was left. And then, we were back then, listen to the customers. And, I was in customer service back then. It seemed to me what they said and what they meant were two different things. So customer service became a huge, flashpoint for me. Mostly being yelled at as being in customer service all those years. So we went into product service, and then the delivery wasn't good. So we took over the delivery from the outsourced solution that we had. And then install became a thing. So we developed that, and that became really the evolution of our competitive, our unique selling proposition. It was originally just sell what the others couldn't sell, like Sub-Zero, Thermador, that type of stuff. And then it became, customer service. Then it became about product service. And then it became about install and delivery. And those three over time became part of who we were. And then, the next revolution, the digital revolution, we stopped advertising and went fully digital in terms of blogging and video. And either we got lucky or we were just ahead of that. So that's really kind of like, you know, I think when you talk about business of why people buy, you're going to think of what is your unique that would make you attractive to a certain type of buyer, and that's really what our focus has been since I've been here mostly.
Yeah, what I got out of that is it's interesting because like when people come up with, what is their strategy or competitive advantage, sometimes people try to get too tricky, like, oh my gosh, other people do what I do. How could I have a competitive advantage? But I think you sort of laid it out there. I mean, you have amazing customer service, and then you're able to deliver a large product without it getting damaged and actually install it properly, and then you're able to service it at a high level after. And you put all those things together, and everybody can say that, or other people might say they service, and other people might say they deliver, and other people might say they can sell it. But you put it all together with great reviews, and that's probably your competitive advantage right there.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think that we're lucky rather than being good, but now you don't have a choice. Like,
Yeah.
you can't just upset somebody. I mean, nobody's perfect, and shut this podcast off. I said we're immaculate in terms of everything. Nobody is. It's service recovery is really important as well.
Mm-hmm.
But now you don't have a choice. Now everything is transparent, right? You get reviews and
it's all out there.
Neighbors talking. It's one person. I did a talk in front of Bosch 20 years ago, and I put this woman who lived in Chicago but traveled to Boston and Los Angeles, and at that time, like, this is the beginning of it all. This is before the iPhone. She had like 1,000 reviews on Yelp or something like that. I said, this woman, you upset this woman, this could be a catastrophic problem. And think of that evolution of that. There's now hundreds of thousands of people like that just walking around. You never can tell. So customer service is everybody's. It's going to be everybody's first priority now.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And before we go on too far, I just want to make sure the audience understands. Sure. Your company, you guys sell high-end appliances. So I think you said Sub-Zero, Thermador, Bosch. Yeah.
We do LG, GE, but mostly it's like it's a box that they can get in. I think we have 60 competitors in a 20 square mile area. So you got to distinguish something other than offering an appliance, because there's a lot of people that do it.
Yeah. And what's the breakdown of your employees? You guys have physical locations, do you have showrooms that people can go into in different geographies, and they can pick out, which product they want, and then you deliver? And I'm sure you have a delivery team and an install team, and what's the basic team?
Sure. Well, we operate a 240,000 square foot warehouse out of Norton, and that feeds all our locations. We have one in Boston, or actually in Dorchester, which is 1 mile south of Boston. But my dad found it. It was abandoned in 1984, and right now it's, we talk about being lucky than good. Right now, Boston's so expensive that we're the only independent appliance store in Boston.
Oh, wow.
There's Best Buy, Home Depot, Lowe's. So there's a certain amount of luck too. I wish we could have one, but the traffic in Boston is such where we had to go out west to Framingham, which is west of the city. It's only like 15, 16 miles, but it's like a different world, certainly if you travel it. Then we had to go South Shore, which is Hanover. Then we opened in Norton, which is I-90, 495. And then we're on the Cape in Hyannis. We're opening in Nantucket next week. So it's just like, if Boston had normal traffic, we could have maybe one or two, but crazy.
Yeah. So you have to merge a distribution center, a physical footprint of almost like, point of sale service, along with the, service business. Well, how about this? Who are your direct reports? Not, not by name, but like by job title, because you've got to manage this. This is a complex business. You're not just doing distribution. You've got to have, people who are experts with, retail and service and delivery. So what does that look like?
Well, I always say if there's only one of me, and that's a good thing, because you don't want me in like certain parts of the company. It would be like broken.
Yeah.
We have the people who report to me really are the director of operations and director of sales, and the director of marketing. And I work mostly in the marketing and sales and a little bit of ops. But we all have kind of complementary skills. It's almost like three legs of a stool. You could have great sales and marketing, you have great marketing, but if you have good operations, it doesn't work. You've got a good operations, but bad sales and bad marketing don't work. If you get good sales and good operations and poor marketing, it may work, but it's certainly marketing's kind of like a missile. If it's fired well, it's going to land where it should. If you've got a bad company, it's going to land probably right back where it started. So,
yeah. Well, and I definitely want to dig into the marketing a little bit later on. So,
sure.
Talk about, okay, as you're building this company, what was the hardest point? Because you've been doing this for, sounds like, I know you've been in the company for like 50 years, you mentioned, CEO for a little over 20. What's the hardest point in your journey with the company? And what's the proudest or highest moment with the company?
The hardest part is getting the team. It's two things. It's having the vision of how to compete, and then it's getting the team with you, of getting the complementary skills you need. And I used to feel bad about it. I've been here full time, kind of in a semi-management role since 1986, and I mean, I didn't really think I had a handle on it until 2009. And I remember there's an interview of Bill Sheridan when he said it to an interviewer. The hardest part was getting his team in 37 years. And the guy goes, "Wow, it took you 37 years. Why?" And he goes, "Because that's how long it takes." So I feel, I felt pretty good compared to that. But really, that's it. There's the highs and lows are really, I find, people oriented. I think, you give people the right tools and hopefully they use them. Now you have standards and metrics that'll help you along the way, but that's always the hardest part. I think it's people and systems, really, mostly.
Yeah. Well, can you share what system you guys do use? I mean, do you use something big like NetSuite, or is there anything interesting that you guys use for an ERP?
Oh, NetSuite, interesting. I'd love to be on NetSuite, but they don't have a service module. Which is a big problem because 40% of our business is service related in some way or another. What we did is we've been on 3 different systems since I've been here in '86. Well, 4. First was paper.
That's
hard to believe. Hard to believe that. And there was, before there was an internet, we had paper.
Yeah.
And then we had a local system, and then we had GERS, which was a retail system that a lot of the furniture guys used, like Jordan's and a few of those guys. And we figured that and they had a few appliance people on it. We figured that the furniture guys had all the money, they make all the margin, so they do the development. And we were right, except they did the development in furniture. So then we found this thing called ePass, and ePass is good because it's got a service module, but it's we're back on the hunt for something else. Now it's just there's always, like, when you look at an ERP system, it's always like some guy who said, "I can do this better," and he builds a system up, and how well he or she builds it depends on what kind of structure they put around the original idea, and whether it's cloud-based or not now. And we'll see. That's a big, I think we could, nothing is perfect in ERP.
No, it's always a compromise.
I mean, you can talk about SAP and they've got a light version, but those are the same guys that, Whirlpool didn't have washers for Home Depot, and companies didn't have candy. So it's during Halloween with SAP systems, not because SAP is a problem. It's the implementation and everything. That's just we could have a whole conversation on that.
Oh yeah, no, we went through it. It what I learned is it's really just a financial kernel, okay, and everybody's got other bells and whistles, but what you're getting is you're getting a financial system, which everybody can kind of give to you, and then around it, you maybe get your modules you want or you don't want, and so. Yeah, I don't I'm not an advocate of one over the other, but we looked at all. I mean, we did NetSuite, but we looked at all the Microsoft and Acumatica and SAP. I mean, we looked at all of them, right? But at the end of the day, they're all compromises, and that was what I came up with. Was it's just basically a finance kernel, and you can plug everything in, and so everybody should probably just go with probably, in my opinion, the simplest system. Or if you have a long-term people that are going to be with you and they're in finance, go with the one that they have experience with, because they're going to be the ones who implement it.
Yeah, but it gets more complicated. Now you've got your e-commerce, you got POS, you've got warehouse, you've got accounting, you've got service, and they all have to talk to each other. I only wanted to be on one system, but now you may have to break that system up and get a NetSuite, which has got a good POS, and then find something else that's got a good service on the other side, and hope that they talk to each other.
Yeah, well, they have their modules. Yeah, I mean, even like we didn't use NetSuite WMS. We had to get a third party, warehouse management, and so they're all actually what it all comes down to is who on your team is going to implement it. That we should, that's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, it's a big. I like to ask just because it's always on their mind, right? It's like, when do you want to bite the bullet? But it's on your mind. Okay, is it time for that new system? Okay, so what's interesting about now with all the volatility and everything going on, everybody calling for the end of the world. You've survived 4 recessions. Your business has, and a pandemic. I mean, literally, you guys were started in the Depression, which is
1923 was the good times. Before 29 was the Depression. We had 6 years of good time, and then it hit my predecessors hard in 1929.
Yeah, so you guys all the way through with all of that history. Now you came in right after the dot-com bust, which actually I think is kind of a good time actually, because it was sort of like, kind of like cleaned up a lot of mess, and I thought it was a pretty good time to start a business. But then you had to deal with the financial crisis, and then of course COVID, and you guys are buying tons of product and you're importing some of your own, so you're dealing with tariffs. So what's the survival tactic that you believe most founders might overlook, or just what you learned during these challenging times?
Every recession's different, right? It comes down to fundamentals. The fundamentals for me is just making sure, I am loath to cut people. I think managing your expenses and budgeting properly, expecting, JHA's job descriptions, and really leveraging good people to do good things, and thinking of different things that maybe your competitors. The good news is for everybody is there isn't a particular cloud over your business, right? This recession isn't hitting me; it's hitting everybody in our industry. So we get a chance. In these times, if you're smart, you can survive and get bigger and grab more market share. And then when the good times happen on the other side, because there's, you got to believe that there's going to be good times. You have to. I mean, just to be an optimist, if you can survive, whereas your competitors do not, then there'll be much better times. It's just, when you're in survival mode, you don't throw the people out of the boat, you throw the furniture and all the nice to haves, and, keep your T&E down, and all this other stuff is it's paramount to survival, really. Having better marketing, certainly coming out with better customer policies. We've come up with we deliver same day, next day, which was a product of the pandemic, really. And we kept that going. We have 48-hour install, all that sort of thing that you can do, provided you have the right people to get it done. So, it's a good chance to get better, to attract better people, and maybe, come to terms with some people that need some improvement, So.
And you mentioned about marketing. I want to kind of go down the rabbit hole, because that was my focus when I was growing the business. And it's funny because we're both doing appliances, right? You guys, and that's a common thread we have. And I always say, so I was big into SEO. and in the early days, and all the marketing, and appliances are not the big sexy product, right? So we were competing with people who had no clue about marketing. You're probably feeling the same way. It's like the appliance industry is behind, right? And so if you could market well, and later on we used influencer marketing, and we had other people talking about our brand and our products, it seemed like that was a big advantage. Of course, all the tech products were doing that early on, but the appliance competitors were not. So tell me about, what year you started, and sort of what were the things you were doing, and what your team maybe looked like versus what you're outsourcing.
I can't believe you knew it. I think that's so interesting, that whole kind of that area of business. But in 2007, we had to throw furniture off the boat, and that to me was marketing. Not marketing, but spending money for advertising. I mean, we did radio ads, we did some newspaper, and we spent a good amount of money on that sort of thing. And one day I just stopped. And what we did instead is, like, people don't want to hear how great you are, and especially the next generations. What we did is we showed people how to buy the stuff, and we were honest about it. We published service statistics on what it is we actually service, and say, here are the percentages that you can expect of service within the first year. We talked about problems in the buying purchase, and how to overcome them. We blogged. We do YouTube videos. We send emails out, ostensibly not to sell anything, but just to become the subject, the authority in our space. And we don't sell out of our area, so it really doesn't matter. But people watch a lot of video. It's surprising how many views and how many. We're talking millions of minutes per month.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And you think that as long as you're honest with somebody, and we will, that if they're in their area, they'll at least give us a look. And that's really what it is. It's almost like it's an authority bias. And what did Robert Cialdini said? If you do something for somebody, then they're hardwired to do something for you, and that's kind of became the basis of our marketing. I spend about $150,000 on AdWords, only because I get a reciprocal amount in co-op.
Okay. Yeah. So
I wouldn't spend it if I didn't get it. So
right.
We spend about $350,000. We get about 160 and 40. I think it's 15,000 a month in co-op. So it's really it's nothing.
But by the way, I think that's a foreign term to most people, co-op. So you're getting most people listening to that. What's a co-op?
Well, I know. Co-op means the manufacturers are giving you, 1 for 1.
Yeah. So you're smart to still be getting that. And I mean, look, a lot of things have changed. Okay. So co-op is still around. Okay. That's good to hear. So yeah, you're spending, for the advantage of these brands. So you're saying, hey, we get a benefit because we're selling your product, but then your product gets some benefit because we're marketing it for you. And so they're joining in on the co-op there.
I think they do that for a lot of people, but specifically for me, I don't take any extra co-op, only because I want to be honest with people. I don't want to be bought per se, and I don't want that perception. So I don't take money for positive reviews. I certainly won't take them for a lot of things. They won't give them to me for a lot of things we do, but that's it. I think that formula works, and especially for startups and everything else, where spending money is you really got to mind your dollars and cents, and these huge marketing budgets. Just I don't see how it moves the needles. At least it didn't for us in 2007, 2008.
Yeah, and well, let's move kind of to you have an incredible business, multi-generation, 150 million. Let's kind of move down, back to say the smaller companies and maybe some of the listeners. And what's a piece of advice for someone scaling a 5, 10, $15 million product business? I'd love to hear your advice on it, but also how you think of margins and net profit percentages, if you can share, just how you think about it. And the reason is, people who I work with, people who I'm talking to, it's amazing what a common thread it is that these companies are not making enough money. Okay, they're always thinking they're going to make money tomorrow, but even if they're $10 million, their profit, their margins are so slim. And I'm just like, guys, like, that's the only thing you need to work on. You don't need to work on anything else. Like, that margin should be double what it is, or you're going to be in trouble. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, but also just other advice you have for companies of that size.
Oh yeah, for $5 to $10 million. First of all, if you're not getting enough margin, or you can't command the margin, then how unique is your product?
Yeah.
I mean, people know me as a content marketer outside, but really, what it comes down to is, what is your uniques, right? If your product is unique, and I think Apple has proven this at a massive scale. I've never seen a sale on an Apple phone. Have you?
Right.
And they make a fortune on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So before you go out and you design the product, whether it's a filter or anything else, why would someone want to buy it? And is it that much better, or is it that much more nuanced than what's out there now? And if it's not nuanced, then you're in a that whole blue ocean strategy thing. You're going to play a discount game, which is what you can ill afford to do in a startup, right?
Yeah.
So how unique is your product? And if it's not unique, you got to if you can redo it to be unique, that's what I would advise someone to do. What is your unique selling proposition? Can you make margin based on it? That's the first thing. Before marketing, before anything, is how unique is your product? If it's very unique, then you're going to get a good dollar on it, right? And then the other thing is, what are you good at, right? Typically, it's one of the three things I mentioned. Are you an operations person? If you're an operations person, you need a salesperson. If you're a salesperson, you need an operations person, right? But what ties you together is your ethical approach to the business, right? You need the same people that have the same integrity, high integrity that you do, right? Because we all have those stories, don't we? Of the guy who did X to me, right? All of us, it doesn't matter. I have them. I'm sure you do as well. So you're just gonna make you have a good opposite number with some integrity, and then I'd focus on HR, right? Getting the right people and creating the environment to create a good company comes from having good HR and great people around you, and you want to hire for that, and you want to get rid of there's a guy that once said, if you want to be successful in life, you got to stay out of the zip code of bad people.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Right. Stay out of the zip code of bad people. Right. So how unique is your product? Who's going to be on your team? How are you going to focus on the culture of your team? Right. And how are you going to make sure that you're not sidetracked by any number of people that can do that to you? So
yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, great response, and it actually falls exactly what I see, because it's start with the product first. Okay, so just like anybody starting a business, I mean, if you got to start with the product, and if you find those margins, then you can hire the people. The problem is, a lot of times, like I said, people don't have the margins. So then I'm like, okay, you need a new ops person or a new salesperson. Okay, here's what I'm looking at. I'm like, well, you probably can't find the right person for that salary. Like, you can, talented people have a requirement up here, and often they can't afford the right talent. That's a chicken or the egg problem.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things. If you can't get the margins, that's a product problem. If you can't make the money, that's an operations expense problem, right? You could have two problems, right? But typically, if the product can't command the margin, that means it's not unique enough. If you can't make any money, that means your operations are sideways, right? And one good thing is, I think there's potential with AI to remove a lot of stuff, right? I think autonomous agents are going to be able to save companies lots of money in the future, of having a autonomous AI agent to be able to help your customers. You still need the human element in there, but I see that as a major money saver. I'm not going to use it to reduce headcount, but if I was starting over again, I'd start there and then hire the humans around it. certainly.
Yeah. Well, Steve, let's finish with that, because I know that's something that we talked about quickly at the beginning. I just was asking what you're working on, and you had an interest in AI. So why don't we wrap it up with those thoughts? I'd love to hear, if you have any specifics, or just, or where do you see it going? And I know a lot of people here, there's going to be a lot happening, and we're all using ChatGPT or Perplexity or something. But are you doing anything beyond that, or you're in you're in Boston, so you're around all the tech scientists over there.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is I do a lot of marketing podcasting. Right?
Okay.
And it started going AI like in 2022. And I heard some use cases. I'm like, we better start. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So when last year we go to NRF every year, that's the National Retail Foundation. And in last year, our ops guy goes, it's not ready. So, I prepared myself, and we went to NRF this year, and NVIDIA actually was all over it. I'm like, this is the year, right? So we're from a company standpoint, we're looking at Amazon, we're looking at Microsoft Copilot, or IBM's got Watson, to dump everything into a central repository to be able to give agents basically a system. But in the meantime, right, I built some projects in custom GPT to help our front line. We're testing that, and it seems to be working. But it's something like, for instance, right, we talked about HR. It's like, how do we know good people from bad people? Well, why don't we take the resumes of the good people, put it through AI, and give that AI 30 years of HR training, right? It's almost kind of like Neo did in the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
You hit a button, he becomes a jiu-jitsu instructor, right? Why don't we see all the people that succeeded, what the commonalities were, and put it through artificial intelligence, and come up with maybe better questions or better functions. Now, that may not work right away. It depends on how you prime it, because it still needs that human element. And better yet, how about all the people that didn't work out here? What were their commonalities? So you have like a better template of the person that succeeds and fails at your company. I mean, your customer service. I mean, you can give service techs like, Sub-Zero isn't the ice maker isn't working. What are the commonalities? And you give that information to the people actually fixing it, right? There's all sorts of use cases that can really drive down the costs and make you more efficient. So that we're looking at that all the time. I think there's a tremendous future in that. And I'm not looking for that to reduce headcount. I'm looking for us to be a lot more efficient and to be able to attack new markets, because we'll have all this extra capacity, So
yeah, well,
that's interesting stuff. And I think everybody that's listening is probably doing. I mean, I hope we're all past like, I can write a professional email using chat, because I think that's a very limited use case. Can you pour some efficiency into your company? And that's really the holy grail, I think.
And early on, you said create a repository. So just so I understand, because I think I know where you're going, like that I think is where the value is. If in our business, you're able to put all the inputs into one area for then AI to completely understand your company. You have a very diverse company. I mean, you're talking, the service, the delivery, the distribution, the market, like there's a lot going on there. And so you kind of have to have a way to get all that information into one repository for AI to work on from there.
You can do that. I did the Teams Chat GPT, but it doesn't share information.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go to Chat Enterprise to do that, and that's a little bit more money for a team like ours. It would be like 100 people. It's $200 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be using it. But I think that if you get and again, you put everything, you're talking about all the blog information, all the videos you've ever done, all the service tickets that have succeeded and failed, and all this comes to, to your house. If that new air refrigerator isn't cooling, you're going to give some pretty good data of what to do now. So you're not going out 2 or 3 times, which is the bane of the existence for this whole industry, in my opinion.
No, well, exactly. I mean, look, in the appliance industry, if you, especially the low end appliance, if a product's broken, it's not even worth sending somebody out. That's how crazy this industry is. It's like trash it, we'll send you a new one. I mean, it's very wasteful. So you're right. If efficiency is good for everybody, it's good for the environment. It's good for, all stakeholders. So,
No question.
yeah, that's really interesting. Listen, Steve, you got an amazing story. I know we have a time cutoff here, but I'm thankful for your time and you hopping on the podcast.
It was my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, listen, just give you the opportunity to share if you want to, if there's a place for people to contact you or your website or where would you
Sure.
like to direct people?
Sure. I mean, it depends. I mean, if someone's got a question like to ask, you can always certainly, I'm on LinkedIn, answer questions on YouTube, our blog, if it's product related, if it's, if you've got a burning question and you're in a startup, most of your listeners 5 to 10 million.
No, they're
Because
typically,
I've been there.
I know we've all, it's like 5 to 50. 5 to 50 is the basic range, mostly products, some service businesses.
Yeah, it's tough if you've got any questions. Typically, I don't look at myself as a resource. I look at myself as, I think I've made every mistake. I've fallen down every staircase and everything else. So if there's if there's a choice A or B, I've probably taken the wrong one in my career. So if I can stop you from doing that, certainly hit me up on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, awesome. Listen, it's been a pleasure having you. Thanks again for your time.
Pleasure talking to you. Take care. Thank you.